Hi guys, Miss B here. Just finalizing everything here on part one, which is the line drawing of either our good friend Bernie Sanders or Mr. Trump. Okay, I did Sanders. I used the half that I had provided for you to continue around the perimeter of his head. And then I worked out a system of what I called half-C's here. So that's pretty much gridded in. You can see the number of bigger blocks that I've broken into 4 smaller blocks to help me isolate and pinpoint where the coordinates would be. Okay, now you should be showing me probably more coordinates than I'm showing you. I will be checking to make sure that yours lines up with roughly the coordinates that I have here. Actually pretty closely the coordinates. So now comes part 2, which would be adding the shading. So when I shade, I look for the most prominent shading things from top to bottom. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is a little rim of shade all the way around Bernie's head, with most of it on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and start here. I use the side of my pencil. We kind of talked about this, where you shake hands with the pencil, stick your forefinger out, and then you kind of do this. Now you should always go light first, and you may have to go back in and erase some lines. That's why I want you to hand this in as a line art sketch first, so that I can grade you on how well you make your coordinates. So if you erase all your lines, I'm not going to be able to tell that. So to get that part of the grade, you have to turn in a preliminary sketch to me with everything in where you think it's the right space, and then we'll start with the shading. But I didn't want you to be at a loss for how to get this thing started. So there's some variation in here between, this is a little bit darker here than it is here, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put it in roughly where I think stuff is, and go around here. You can see that massive reflection right there. That'll be all white right there. And I'll probably have to erase that line, but I think I gave you that line on a photocopy, so we might have a little bit of a harsher line there than we want. That's not your fault, so I will not hold you accountable for it. Okay, so you can see I'm going around from top to bottom, and a lot of you had started to put the hair in. Now if you start putting line strokes in his hair like this, what happens? It gets dark, right? Can't do that. So you have to look for where shadows are, areas, rather than lines. So when I look at Bernie, I see some gray here, but I see mostly white here, and the background is darker. So I'm going to kind of just frame in. You don't have to have every little hair exactly right, but he is pretty famous for his flyaways. So what I would do is I would just start putting in the negative space. We talked about that a lot, the white egg on the white background and so on. And what you can do is leave the white by just filling in the dark around it. We did the vignettes with our candle. It's basically the same process. You can get as detailed as you want it to. I'm not going to fuss with it a lot here to keep this video a little shorter. Okay, so I see a little triangle here. Maybe go out like this, and then you fill in the background a little bit darker. Okay, so moving along, he does have a little bit of value on his hair right here. So I'm going to attempt to put that in. It's sort of a light to medium gray. Again, it might be a little bit darker within, but I can always go back in and make things darker. It's harder to get them light again. So I'm going to, again, leave some white areas around that gray. So I'm going to leave a little bit of white here and just try to get a little gray in between it, and that leaves white. See that? Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, Mrs. B's awesome. Just kidding. Okay, but anyway, so basically there. Then as I would move my way down, I would notice that the shadows on his temple area, we talked about the temple when we did Frankenstein, slightly darker here where you have that dent in your head. So if you forgot about it, feel for the dent in your head. It would be right about here. Just where it's crossing the temple of his glasses, it would cross the temple of mine. It's all about you picking how dark it should be. Okay, and they do manufacture value scales. I don't have any to share with you, but imagine if you go online and try to figure out the value scale scientifically, you could. Now to me that looks a little too too neat right there. So I'm going to erase the edge of my guideline, and I'm going to just buff it a little bit to make that shadow a little bit less rigid. So I'm going to darken it where I think it's a little darker. Kind of feather a little here and there. He's got kind of these uncertain brows there. There's a little tiny bit of shadow on the left side of where his eyelid is here. I guess on him it would be his right. To us it looks like the left. And I softly put that in. I softly put that. I'll probably make this darker eventually. Put that little bit of saggy baggy thing under his eye. Put that in. I'm going to put this in softer than I normally would right here. And I'm going to look for a little shadow under the frame of the glasses. So again, the glasses frame is very light, so that shouldn't be dark. Don't make a dark line there. Keep that super light. And it's the darkness around it that makes the edges of the light. This should sound familiar to you guys, right? Yeah. Okay. So buff that out a little bit, and that starts to make his eye look like it's projecting out into space a little. Okay, so let's tackle some darks now. Even inside of his eye, though, he'll have a little shadow because the eyelid is over it. So right here and right here, I'm going to put some medium shadows in there. And then that lid area, he doesn't have mascara on, but that's going to be the darkest. And leave that reflection in his eye. You may actually have it a little darker right here on the iris, the colored part of the eye, and go a little bit lighter below it. I can barely make out a pupil about there. And there's a little break in that light in his eye. But that starts to look very dimensional. Starts to look more like Bernie. Okay. Again, put the shadow under the frame of the glasses, so that you see the frame as very light. You can adjust the shape, but you want that glasses frame to be light. That's all I'm going to do for you now, but I will show you a finished photo of this, and I hope that's enough to help you. Email me if you have any other problems. Thanks. Bye.